Great, great. Looks like we have everybody joining us as everybody logs on. My understanding is we have really everybody across the country in a lot of different markets represented. Morning time out in California, early afternoon in New York, and also Santiago. And we have a really great panel today. I'm pretty excited about it, and great virtual tour as well. So this should be a pretty fun one, and I'm happy to be with everybody. We have a hello from Detroit, Michigan. Very, very nice. Hello, Catherine. Got Chicago, New York City. There we go. DC checking in. Thank you, David. And Manhattan. Portland, very nice. Was just out there. Love the city. Jackson, very, very cool. Northern California, right on, right on. Austin. Great. Well, I think we have just about everybody on. Welcome in, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Welcome from the SommFoundation and Ventisquero. We have a really fun event coming up today. And also there's going to be scholarships on award, which is great. You have the chance to test for 3 $500 each scholarships. Now, just a couple details about that. You must attend the session to be eligible. And so that's all the way to the end. We'll verify that with Zoom. The test will be available from 6:30 a.m. Pacific until 1:30 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday, June 22nd, that's tomorrow. The test link will be emailed to all participants in the evening of tonight, the 21st, and shared in the chat box at the end of the event. Like I said, the top 3 scorers will get $500 each in scholarship awards. In the event of a tie, the faster test taker will receive the award. And the test will be comprised of 16 multiple choice and true false format questions. And now participants who have received awards from similar competitions through the SommFoundation in the past 12 months, you're welcome to take the test, but you won't be eligible for the $500 scholarship. And we'll email out those test results to you on Friday, June 25th. And so we'll be going through the vineyards of Chile from north to south. We'll also have a little presentation. It's a SommGeo tour for this event. If you haven't checked that out, it's on the SommFoundation website as our virtual enrichment trip. And it's an example of a much larger platform, which is SommGeo. And SommGeo, it's available to donors to the SommFoundation and includes all the world's wine regions, in-depth wine theory, well over 100 high-res downloadable printable maps, and really a fun platform. I hope you enjoy it. And you can check that out also on the SommFoundation website as well. And if you have questions throughout today's event, we're going to be doing a Q&A. If there's something in relation to a wine, we'll bring it up right after that wine, but also have a Q&A towards the end. We'll make sure to get those questions to the winemakers. And now I'd like to hand it off to the PR director at Ventisquero, Catalina Brauchle.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everyone. First of all, I have to say I'm very excited. We have people from lots of parts of the US. That's exciting for us. Sacramento, New Orleans, Raleigh, Orlando. I saw a lot of cities there. So welcome. Thank you to the SommFoundation as well for this partnership and being able to partner and build this event for you. As Ventisquero brand, we're very proud to present the diversity of the Chile's vineyards from north to south. I would also like to welcome some journalists that are present today, not only sommeliers, so welcome. And before I present our 2 hosts for this journey, I would like to introduce Horacio Fuentes. He's our export sales director for Ventisquero in the US and all of the America's continent. So Horacio, welcome.
Well, thank you, Catalina. Hello and welcome, everyone. Nice to meet you for now. Firstly, congrats to all the organization team. Amazing job to make this happen. So very happy to be part of this seminar. As Catalina said, I am responsible for the US market based in Atlanta, Georgia. And all the wines you will taste today are in the US distribution, B2B, across our national network of wholesalers. And now, a few weeks ago, we just launched our B2C. This is our wine club, direct to consumer, where pretty much everything is at the full, as the doorstep in 37 states. So very excited about what is going to happen today, and very welcome and enjoy the trip.
Thank you, Horacio. So we have questions for you. Stay here connected so you can help us answer that. And now I will introduce the two hosts for today. They are Felipe Tosso, our head winemaker at Ventisquero, and also Sergio Hormazabal, our head viticulturist at Ventisquero. They will both be traveling with us through Chile and tasting with you these wonderful wines that I hope you already have there in front of you and have already opened. So Sergio, Felipe, welcome. It's all yours. Greg will start the journey through our lovely Chile.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Cata, and everybody. Thank you to be with us. We are really excited to share with you this amazing virtual tour through the different terroirs in Chile, where we have some of the vineyards. Greg? Good.
Yeah, hello everybody also. Hi Greg. Hi everyone. First to say hello to everybody. It's a pleasure, and because we can't still be there, so we hope to be there soon. I know you're opening your doors more and more. Still here in Chile, we're a little bit closed, so we can't travel that fast, but we would love to be there soon and be able to share. But I think it's incredible that here from Chile, we can share our wines to you and talk about wines and discuss, and you can taste and see a little bit of this long and thin country.
So using this amazing platform, we're gonna make this virtual tour through Chile. And now you have in your screen a general overview of Chile. Just a few words about the country. Chile is a very, very long country, around 4,500 kilometers from north to south. But the central area, the area where we could grow vineyards, is around 1,500 kilometers from the Andes and the south. Every year we go more in the south and more in the Andes and in the north. That's changing every year. But here we have the general situation of Chile, and our country is between the Pacific Ocean and the Andes mountains. The Andes is quite high range of mountain. And it's like the backbone of our country. And that's quite important, the Chilean terroir, because this Pacific Ocean, it's have the Humboldt current. It's a very cold sea current that came from the Antarctic, and it's very cold, even the summer and the winter. And that's make all the Chilean terroir so special, because we have in the central area a Mediterranean climate. In the north, it's really dry. We have the driest desert in the world. And in the south to Concepcion, in the south of Chile, is more oceanic and more rainy. That's in general. It is the Chile is quite narrow. We have the country is so long, but the average the radius between the Andes and the Pacific is around 200 kilometers in general. Then we could start this trip, Greg, by the north, by the Atacama. I don't know if some among you, among the assistants, have been in Chile. I guess yes, and normally it's quite far away. The different cities and the different places are far away from one point to the other one. The first stop will be the Atacama Desert. It's the driest desert in the world. And where we have the vineyard in the Huasco Valley. Here you have the Atacama. This is the southest part of the Atacama Desert, and usually has been a very traditional place for make pisco. Pisco is a Chilean spirit made from Moscato grapes, but in the Andes area. But we were the first to grow dry wine in the coastal part of the valley. This is in the Huasco Valley. Is around 750 kilometers north to Santiago. So it's really, really dry. We have around between 0 and 40 millimeters of rain a year. So that's really, really low. It's extremely dry. But we have that Huasco River. That is a small river, but that's make that the miracle happens. And we have two areas. There's Longomilla and Nicolasa, two vineyards in the same valley. Longomilla, it's at 29 kilometers to the coast. And Nicolasa, that's 19 kilometers to the coast. And both are really special. That climate is very rich in limestone and clay. It's one of the few places and terroir in Chile that have an important amount of limestone. And also the saltiness of the ground is quite important. Felipe will show you how important is that saltiness and that limestone in the wine in a while. And those in those two vineyards, in total we have 20 hectares. It's a small project that we start in 2010, and we were the first producers of dry wine in the Huasco Valley, and we are really proud of that. Because, as I told you, that we're a valley for pisco and also for pajarete, that it's a sweet wine that is usually made in the Andes side of the valley. But in this part of the valley, the traditional agriculture was just olive trees and some other fruits. You have some overview of the vineyard there. It's a very extreme place. Full of the saltiness is quite important, so we must to irrigate all year round to push the salts out from the roots. And maybe when you think in a desert, you think in a hot place, but this is it's a cold area. It's a cold desert. We don't have more than 27 degrees in the summer. And also in the winter, the minimum is around 7 to 8 degrees. So don't think in the Death Valley. It's a very cold climate desert, and one of the things more remarkable are in every single morning we have a fog, a very, very thick fog that we call Camanchaca. The Camanchaca, it's the classical fog in the morning. That's the stop at noon. And then in the afternoon, we have a very, very clear sky with a lot of sunlight. This is more or less what happened with the climate and with the soil. And maybe, Felipe, you could talk a little bit about the wine that we make in this amazing terroir, our Tara.
Yeah, so we're starting with Tara, as I show you here, Tara Chardonnay. Well, when you talk to make a wine in the desert, it's like making wine in Mars in a certain way, especially if it's a cool climate understanding. So the first thing that we have to say to you that is, it's a very weird area to make wine. But why did we decide to do this? And there's a little stories that are very interesting in wine. And first of all, why we call it Tara. Tara has several meanings. Of course, you can remember, you know, of a woman, Tara. It's very used, but it's not the reason why we put the name for this white wine. And Tara is an area, and the first meaning, there's a salt flat that is an amazing salt flat in the Atacama area that is not exactly where we produce the wine, but it's a little bit in honor to those salt flats because, and it's called Tara. It's an epic place in very well known, and we wanted a name that can reflect also. There's another meaning for this. There's some bush trees that are typically from very small that are called Tara also. So there's a lot of things, but the real meaning is about the salt flat. But also in Spanish, Tara, it means a very difficult thing to make. So Tara is something complicated sometimes to make. So at the end, it had a lot of meanings really, but the salt flat is the real meaning why we put this name that comes from the north. So if you see our style of wine is a natural, quite natural style of wine that we make here. Even if you see on the label, it says white wine number 1, the Atacama, says the bottles, and we put on the label base wine Chardonnay. And it's why did we want to talk about Tara? Because especially at the beginning when we started the planting in 2007, it was very complex to try to this vineyard grow, and Sergio, as our chief in viticulture, knows exactly that we plant the vineyard, didn't we? Can you explain a little bit of that, Sergio?
Yeah, because it was challenging since the beginning. At the beginning, it was just a trial. We started to plant some rows of vineyards, and nobody really knows if it will be a success or a mess, because it was completely new. And the first grape when we start to harvest and we try the wines that we start to have with the grapes, we talk with Felipe and the team. Wow, what's that? It was something completely different, because it's like, as Felipe says, like makes wine in Mars. When you are the first to establish a vineyard in a place, is like, wow, it's something very strong and very, very exciting. And we have learned a lot since the beginning. We did a lot of stupid things as usual when we start an adventure. But then year after year, we start to learn that, okay, this is the place, the origin is so strong that the thing is, okay, how to serve, how to flow with the origin, and not to try to change the terroir in our point of view. That was a little bit the lesson, doesn't it, Felipe?
Yeah, and you know, and when we talk about Mars, because this is a project, we always call Tara as a project, even though it's part of Ventisquero. It's a wine that we started together with Sergio and Alejandro Galaz, the other winemaker, together. And as a team, we were so amazed by the terroir that was so different that we even didn't understand a little bit the wines at the beginning. So we are always playing. And if you see in my back screen, there you see some eggs, you see some foudres, you see some big barrels. We have some stainless steel barrels. We're always playing and working to make a wine in a different way and to explore this. So if you see the color and you see it's a beautiful wine, of course it's unfiltered. So the first thing that you would understand, it's an unfiltered wine, natural wine. You in the future can have deposits, etc. That's why we even say it in the label. It says this wine has been made with native yeast. It's unfiltered, so it may have precipitation. And I know that to you, this thing is happening a lot today in the world of showing wines that are as they have. I always say that when we were discussing this with Sergio and Alejandro, it's like, this is like when you make the orange juice in the morning. Do you really want to filter your orange juice? Well, why do you want to filter a white wine and lose all those fine lees and flavors, that you can feel the acidity, a little bit of salinity even though. So when we think about this wine, today, how we're making this wine, it's been evolving through years. At the beginning, we used very old barrels, 6 and 7 year use old white Chardonnay barrels. Today, then we evolved to stainless steel barrels. And today, what we're using today is a blend of stainless steel barrels of 300 liters, some eggs, concrete eggs, there you see, that we made them in Chile, and we made them with the stones of the Atacama where our vineyards are. So we can even have this concrete egg with our own stones. And also we have some vats, some flat vats today that are unoaked inside. So we have some specific Italian vats, that are about 1,500 liters. And they are unoaked, toasted, sorry, untoasted, no toast inside. So it's a beautiful container. So always the idea is that the type of containers that we use for the aging of this wine with all the lees all the time, we keep it for 2 years on lease. We never move this wine. So it's a wine of almost doing nothing. And part of the things that we do, everything is handmade. The only part that today we use a machine for this is to put the corks at the beginning. When we started this project and we started making 400 to 700 bottles of each wine, we would cork everything by hand. We still bottle by hand. So we bottle by gravity, by hand. We just put each wine in a small thing. We do by hand, but then we cork it and we send it to the cork machine because we want a little bit of the air taken down, and it's too complicated, especially now that we changed to the diam cork. It's very complicated to do it by hand, but everything is done by hand. We label it by hand. We press the wine with our feet. So that's why it's such a fine and elegant wine. But what we really want to do is to reflect what we call a cool climate area. So if you think a desert in cool climate, it's very complicated to think of that. So that's why I put life on Mars. When you go there, if you ever can come to visit us, we will go in a pit, in a hole, and the first song you will hear is David Bowie, Life in Mars. That's how we start this travel to Atacama. It's an impressive place. It's a very, it's a desert, well, you have a lot of deserts in the US also, so you can understand, but there's a beauty in the lights of the desert. So what Sergio was talking about, the Camanchaca, C-A-M-A-N-C-H-A, Camanchaca, that is a native word, this thick, fog. It gives us, a lot of humidity in the morning. So in the morning, we will have like 50, in summertime, we will have like 15 Fahrenheit degrees. So very, very low. So it's cold in the morning. You have to have a jacket. And after 12, more or less at noontime, 1 p.m., it will get out this Camanchaca fog, and you will have maximum 80 Fahrenheit, maximum. It could be 70 also some days. Some days it can stay all the day foggy. So that's why the grapes never get burned. So that's a little bit the story of this. They're asking, we keep the wine 2 years on lease. Well, we keep the wine on the lease forever because we keep it with the lease from fermentation, and we never take the lease out ever. We do botonnage, especially at the beginning, like once a week, the first maybe 2-3 months, and then we maintain it. And then maybe once a month, once every 2 months, we stir them out and we put them up. And especially maybe the 3 months before we're going to start to bottle, we start to try to maintain the leaves that drop down to maintain them fresh. So we don't want to work a lot the wine with the bâtonnage, but we want to keep them up because we press with our feet. Normally, if you have about you say 1 kilo, 1 bottle, normally here we say 1 kilo, almost not half a bottle, but less than a bottle. So it's our pressings with our feet make the wine a very low efficiency in terms of the juice, but it's important that it's a very fine and thin pressing. So it's very, very soft, not like when you put it in a press. This is just by the feet. So it's very soft, and that's why we can maintain the lees forever. We have done, even though some, this vintage, specifically 2017, we had an extra 6 months, the wine needed a little bit more time. So we can be up to 30 months with our lees. But this is we bottle it and we send it. Then you do the bottle aging because it's more like a natural wine. It's fragile, very low sulfur. We don't add any sulfur in any moment of the fermentation at all. But just before bottling, maybe 1 or 2 months before, we add a little bit of sulfur, very low, to travel. It's not easy to travel as a natural wine from Chile. Remember, we're in the southern hemisphere, and that means that we cross the Ecuador, and that is super hot. Guys, that's over 100 Fahrenheit. And we had some issues at the beginning. At the beginning, we didn't use any sulfur at all for maybe our first 2 or 3 vintages. Today, we're just using a little bit to not let the wine get so oxidized and keep the freshness, because we want to show you the freshness of the North. That's the idea.
Yeah, and it definitely shows in the glass. I love this wine, and I really love the pioneering attitude of, going to such an extreme climate and producing a wine, native yeast, unfiltered, and for less than 600 cases. So it really is, kind of a labor of love. We have a couple great questions that came in, but I want to make sure we have time to get to them all at the end.
Yeah.
And I think next we're headed down to the Casablanca Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's continue the trip. So we go from Huasco Valley to Casablanca, around 500 kilometers south. So it's quite different. In Casablanca, it's also a cool area, but it's completely different than Huasco. Casablanca was a quite new area. The first vineyard was established in the 80s. So before that, well, people just have some cows and cattle. So that Casablanca having between 25 to 35 kilometers from the Pacific Ocean. It's a classical area for cool climate varieties like Chardonnay, Sauvignon, and Pinot Noir. And the Casablanca soil, we're going to change completely. The Casablanca is more granitic. We have Casablanca is just in the middle of the coastal range. That is the oldest range that we have in Chile, the Andes. The big one is a quite young range, but the coastal range is very, very old, have around 150 million years. In that area, we have mostly granite, very evolved granite soils, and a little bit of clay. And in Casablanca, we have the strong influence from the ocean. It's rained a little bit more, of course, than the Huasco. We have around 250 millimeters a year. It's not too much, but it is where here we have, we could say we have Mediterranean climate. It's where the Mediterranean climate starts. And it's a little bit more humid. We have also that foggy morning, not so thick as in the north, but we have these foggy mornings. And we have in your screen some view, some panoramic view of the vineyards. Those hills that you see there is not the Andes, so that's why they are low. We never have snow here in this area. It's more because of the altitude and it's pretty close to the ocean. So in general, the most remarkable Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and some Sauvignon Blanc came from this area. And the wine that we're gonna try today, Eru, our Pinot Noir Eru, it came from specific like turtle shell hill. It's like an island, an island hill that is in the middle of the Tapihue Valley. And the soil is, as told you, granitic, very, very old soil with high content of yellow and red clay. So have a perfect drainage. And this, the condition of Casablanca is quite fresh. So all the ripening season is quite slow. The maximal temperature are quite similar than Huasco, probably. But of course, the condition is different. We don't have limestone in the soil, but this granite, and also we have a lot of quartz in the soil that makes that mineral fingerprint in the wines that Felipe will tell you in a while. And then this is another view from the hill to the valley in Casablanca. And in Casablanca, we have some frost in September, October. So it's a little bit complicated. It's challenging, we could say, because it's the spring is quite cold in this area. But normally Casablanca for us means it's a very stable climatic terroir. It's quite cold. It's never too hot in the summer, and also we have in Casablanca quite cool night that helps to keep this perfect ripening dynamic during the season. And also the Casablanca is around 1 hour and a half driving to Santiago, and also 1 hour to the coast. So it's a very strategic place. And it's a characteristic, and I told you that it's quite new because it's just in the 80s that we start to have this vineyard. And then now we start to learn the different areas, because there is Casablanca, High Casablanca, Middle Casablanca, and Low Casablanca, and different areas where Tapihue, where Eru is planting, is established, is in the middle Casablanca. It's not so cold, but it's very mild and well balanced. So, and then Felipe, what could you say about our Pinot Noir Eru that you have in your glass right now?
Well, yeah, one of the things that I think that's so important about the work that we're doing together with the Viticulturist team and the winemakers is about recognizing our sites. I think that in about 2006, 2007, about a few years ago, we started a very big program of looking at the soils again, but in a different way. And we worked with a team and did all this electrical system, that we went to see exactly the amounts of clay, the amounts of quartz, and we did all this, I think everybody talks about soils, because at the end, when you're competing with the world, especially with the old world that is so old, the vines, we don't have centuries, as some of the important wineries in the world do have, recognize your terroir. So we really needed and wanted to research our terroir deeply and understand, especially our soils, our weather, our climate, our culture. That's what it's all about. So if you could think a little bit of Casablanca, maybe we would talk about, the coastal areas of California. But Chile is very different because it's thin, it has the huge mountains on the back of, as I was saying, and also what Sergio was explaining about the Humboldt current. The Humboldt current is by far super important for Chile, not just for the grapes, for our seafood, for our fruit system, for a lot of things. It in summertime, maybe if you go in summertime to San Francisco, it's never going to be too warm. Some days it's going to be cold. Well, that's how the coast in Chile is, a little bit to reflect you, the ones who haven't been in Chile. So Eru as a name, and we say Eru, because even though it has an H, so we should say it in English, Heru, but in Chile we don't pronounce the H's. It's the name of an elf. So all our wines have a story. Wines, because there's a story, there's a terroir on the back. And Heru is the elf who keeps this treasure, and this treasure is this vineyard. But the real reason that we got to this fairy tale because Casablanca in the old days, there were gold mines. And in the back of our vineyard, at the very end of the vineyard, there's an old gold mine that, okay, today we don't use anymore because there's no more gold anymore. But that's, so when we start to talk with the people, the people who live in Casablanca, they will tell you all these fairy tales about, the elves going around or strange things happening or funny things happening. And that's why we put so finally, if you see in the label, the label is a hat of the elf, a little bit. And that's maybe one of the, I love this label because, it's a very elegant label, but it shows our work that we were doing. And today, this is a vineyard planted in the year 2000. So today's 21 years old. It's a massal selection. The story of where the grapes come from, it's a massal selection that was brought from Oregon. So of course the origins were Pommard or Burgundy, but it's a massal selection. And that's why it has this complexity. Of course, the soil, it gives you the tension, the granite gives you this complexity. And we do it very gently. We do open top tanks, we do very soft fermentation here. And the thing about the Pinot Noir is about, when you harvest. So here together with the viticulture team, together, is walking through the rows, we separate this hillside in 8 different, the north low, the north high, the south low, the south high, then the east part and the west part. And we ferment very small lots that we were talking about, half a ton to 1 ton containers, open tops. We do first, we refrigerate the grapes. So we take them to near 32 Fahrenheit degrees. So we maintain them there. Then at the next day, we process the grapes very gently. We do, and this thing also, in this grape, we maintain about 35% of whole bunch. But we don't do the typical whole bunch that just put the whole bunch. We destem, we don't crush the grapes, and then we put the stems in layers like a cake. So we put this 35% layers of the whole bunch or the stems. We put in, so you will feel a little bit the crunchiness. What we look here with a Pinot Noir, we want a Pinot Noir with structure, a Pinot Noir that you can eat whatever you want, but we really want to show the variety, especially in Chile. I want to say that it's happening over there in the US. There was a time that a lot of our Pinot Noirs were super light, especially in structure, I would say. And today the old vines or older vines, not super old, but older vines and low yields make us one that has texture, that has tannin and complexity. So that's what we're doing today in this Pinot Noir. I don't know what your reflections about this Pinot Noir, Sergio.
No, I thought it's amazing that you share, Felipe. It's harvesting 1 hectare hill in 8 different blocks is insane. It's crazy, but I think is the secret of the Heru, because when you see the terroir in HD, I mean, you see each pixel of this hill, you really understand, okay, wow, how different is this high north, low south, west, east, and you have 8 different terroirs in 1 hectare. That's crazy. So usually Alejandro harvests the same hill maybe during 3 weeks. And that's the magic, I think, of Heru. This how different could be a terroir in the same little hill. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, oh, please, Greg.
One thing I'm really interested in, and we'll get to this in the next wine, but it's how you compare Pinot Noir grown in Lleida versus Casablanca. But just a quick question that we had on both of the vineyards was, how old are the vines?
Well, Tara starts in 2007. Sergio.
Yeah, 2007. It's 14 years. The first vineyards in Huasco, so it is 2007. That's right. But the last project we planted the 1 year ago. So we still continue, but the vines from that where we make Stara Chardonnay have 14 years old.
Yeah, the old blocks, and Heru was planted in the year 2000. So from the beginning. So today's 21 years. Of course, that the vintage you're having here is we're having which means 17. So it's 17 years old at that time. But one thing is important to know is that we have it's a master selection and that we don't use rootstocks. So in this from Heru, that's a little bit different from Chile. That in general, I don't know, 90% or 95% of the projects in Chile don't use rootstocks because we don't have phylloxera. So that's a very important thing to know. There's few places in the world that a whole country doesn't have phylloxera. You find in Spain, some parts in Australia, I don't know.
Some islands, Cyprus.
Yeah, but a whole country with the size of Chile that doesn't have any phylloxera is very strange. And until today, we don't know why. But it's funny. I imagine there's some things in. I think
it's part of the magic, Felipe.
Yeah, I think a part of this big natural barriers, the Andes Mountains. That on the other side is Argentina. So Argentina does have some problems with phylloxera. And we have a very, good relation with Argentina coming back and forward. So I don't know really why, but the Atacama Desert on the north, the big Pacific Ocean on the other side, then the glaciers on the south of Chile and the Patagonia, in the Chilean Patagonia, it makes Chile a very awesome country, very isolated. Even though we're not an island, sometimes it feels a little bit like we're a big island.
So Greg, we will continue our virtual tour. We invite our friends to go to Lleida. Yeah, our next stop is pretty close than Casablanca, so we go to Lleida. It's a little bit in the south from Casablanca. And when Greg showed us the map, I'm going to explain you something very, very interesting, because the Lleida Valley is very close to the ocean. It's at 7 or 8 kilometers from the ocean. And this is the last part. Yeah, we will see there. It's a little bit south to Casablanca, more closer to the ocean. And the river that you see there in the Lleida is the Maipo River. But the more coastal part of the Maipo Valley is not Maipo Valley. It's weird, but the coastal, the last part where the Maipo ends in the Pacific Ocean is the San Antonio area or Lleida Valley. So it's very, maybe will be a little hard to understand, but the more coastal part of the Maipo Valley is the Lleida. It's really the Lleida Valley. And in Las Terrazas, this is quite new. The first vineyard in Lleida started in the 90s. And this terroir is more extreme than Casablanca because it's have a very, very strong coastal influence with all the wind, the saltiness of the wind and the fog from the ocean. And the Humboldt current, you feel it more strong here in Lleida. Our vineyard is at 7 to 8 kilometers to the coast, and when you are stand on the vineyard, you could see the harbor, and also you could see the river because we are just beside the Maipo River. Yeah, this view is perfect. The vineyard is just beside the river, and you could see in the horizon the harbor, San Antonio Harbor. And it's coldest than the Casablanca, so normally we take a little bit more time for harvest. The yields in Lleida are lower because it's a more extreme area, and I think that it's one of the coolest places that we have in Chile. And the soil in Lleida is like a mosaic, it's like a puzzle. We have some granitic places, we have some colluvial and a little bit of sediment of shells as well. So it's different than Casablanca. Here we have a puzzle of different soils because we are just in the middle, in the point where all the continental big shells they encountered. So it's a very amazing and great mix of different soils. And we call las terrazas because we have different levels. We have 4 different levels from the top to the bottom part, and the influence from the ocean. Even if we have just maybe 1 kilometer in difference, is very high and important. The first terrace that it really face to the ocean is more extreme, is where we have planted the Pinot Noir grape. It's in the terrace number 1. Just you see when you are in that gray Pinot Noir block, you could see the river, and also you could see the Pacific Ocean and the harbor. It's amazing, it's beautiful. And also the soil is colluvial. We have all the stones are sharp stones, and it's a loamy clay soil with a very good drainage. And always we must have a lot of care about the yields, because the humidity of the ambient is quite high. So we must be very careful to have a good condition at the end of the season. And maybe Felipe, we're gonna explain you how different this Pinot Noir is from the Pinot Noir that we have in Casablanca in the Eru Hill. So tell to our friend Felipe, what's the main difference in this wine?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of differences, but at the end, it's Pinot Noir. So that's what we really want to reflect. Of course, we always want to reflect our site, our terroir. When we're talking about Heru recently, we normally take and age that wine for about 14 months in 300 liter and 500 liter barrels, okay? So in terms of how we produce the wine, they're quite similar. And the yields are quite similar, very, very low. In general, Casablanca can have higher yields, but not Heru. Heru has very, very low yields. We're talking about between 0.8 or 1 kilo per plant. We're talking about 10 bunches, 80 grams, 100 grams per bunch, very low, very small bunches. Bunches that are really like this size, very, very small. So I would say the main difference in Lleida is the soil. The soil is very, very different. And of course, the weather, as I was telling Sergio, the weather is very, very cold. When we can have maybe a maximum of, I don't know, maybe even 80 Fahrenheit in Casablanca, and maybe a day could be 85. And I love that, a little bit of more heat for Pinot Noir. In Lleida, that never happens. So first of all, we're talking about a difference between harvest in Casablanca compared to Lleida about 3 weeks later. So it's very complicated. A lot of the days between Lleida and Casablanca is that in Lleida, where we're going to taste the wine now, you're tasting the wine right now, is that a lot of the days are foggy, can be a week, just fog, and the temperatures will be 55 Fahrenheit. So we're talking about very, very low temperatures, and this makes it a completely different type of wine. I would say there's a little bit more aromatics in the red fruit style. There's crunchiness in flavor on it. I would say especially gray, because this is the way also that we want to reflect the wine style of the winemaking. Even though I always say that the winemaker make a little bit, but at the end, the terroir is bigger than the winemaker, than the style and the barrels or whatever. Of course, if you take care of the grapes. So here, these are a little bit younger vines, so you can feel a little bit younger. They're a little bit more tight, but also Gray as a brand. You know, Gray is a line. It's not just one wine. The other wines, this is we make 8 different grays. We make Cabernet, all from different places. So we do exclusively the Pinot Noir from Lleida. So as Sergio was telling, we're just in front of the Pacific Ocean, so we really feel. So there's a little bit of this breeze thing. There's a little bit more cherry flavors, or framboise, you know, the raspberry. It's a little bit more red. It's a little bit less complex than Heru. It's a little bit more straightforward, but it's a beautiful, beautiful wine. And as you see also, we put in a screw up. It's a wine that I love to drink it a little bit younger than Heru. At 17, I think that we can age a little bit longer Heru, but it's a little bit about the style. We want a wine that you can drink a little bit earlier here in beautiful color, you know, have very red. Normally, Lleida has a deeper color than Casablanca. but we really in Pinot Noir, we're not taking much care about the color, well, because the expression of the tannins and the flavors, it's all about the. And here, maybe what does happen that the soils of the stone soils make it a bit, there are tannins a little bit more like a chalky style of tannin in the palate. So that's the beauty. And well, here's, you can see a little bit more the difference between two Pinot Noirs. Of course, with Heru, maybe we keep on the skins much longer. Here, I finish fermentation out of the skin. So there's some stylistic things that we do a little bit different in terms of open tanks. We do it again in open tanks here. We use open tanks. We do a cold maceration before fermenting for about 4 or 5 days at least. If we can do a little bit more. So the extraction is very, very soft. We do normally extraction at the beginning and then we make it soft. And also this, in this one, we also use about 30% of whole bunch, like the. So in general, they're quite similar. Maybe the post maceration is much longer in Heru than in the gray. Okay, and for you to know about the names and about our wines, gray is about our glacier. Chile is maybe one of the countries has more glaciers from the north to the south in the world. And there's the famous gray glacier. Ventisquero as a name, Viña Ventisquero means glacier, you know, because we're full of glaciers. So gray glacier is one of the most amazing Patagonian glaciers in Chile. If you look at it and you Google it or other system that you want to use, you will find an amazing, amazing glacier. That's why this wine is a little bit this line of brand in honor to the glaciers. Okay.
Yeah, really, really beautiful, and it's great to see the tension in it. It really kind of underlines that like cool climate side of it. I mean, you were saying the daytimes rarely get past 85. I mean, that's in the summer. That's definitely pretty cool. I mean, it gets hotter than that in Oregon and Burgundy for sure. A quick question we got from the chat before we move on to the next one. Do you do any carbonic maceration on this, or just classic?
For Heru, we don't do anything. No, just very classical. But for this one, that's a good question. We do a little bit of tricky. About 15% of this wine is done with a small carbonic maceration. Yeah, that's a good question. In general, I'm not a big fan of carbonic maceration because I tend to see that the wines get all the. But we like, as winemakers, you know, with Sergio, with Alejandro, with all the team, we love to make some fermentation. And I would say the last 5 years, in carbonic maceration, but very small, not more than 15% of this wine is carbonic maceration, and then the rest is traditional.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, beautiful wines. Love checking them out. And I think up next we're headed up the Maipo to a little more fuller body styled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Older vintage.
Let's go to the next stop. Now we go from Casablanca to Lleida, and now we go a little bit inland. We're gonna sail through the Maipo River to the Andes, and we're gonna reach the Pirque area. You have the Greg, the image. Yeah, let me tell you about the Maipo. The Maipo is a very classical valley. It's huge. It's all the Santiago area and the surrounded is the Maipo Valley. And as I told you, the coastal part of the Maipo is Lleida. But the Maipo is more of the traditional valleys from the viticulturists. We in Chile, we grow vineyard in Maipo since maybe 200 years. And this part now we're going to invite you to be in the highest part of the Maipo River. This is around at 1,000 meters in altitude in the south of Santiago. And this is the Pirque. The Pirque area is the Maipo Andes, the Maipo Andes appellation. And here we are really in the foothills of the Andes. We have snow every single winter. It's an impressive place. And that where this place is where we find our jewel for the Cabernet Sauvignon, our enclave. That's the wine is called enclave. And this area, it's at 900 meters over the sea. It's really, really close to the river. It's less than 500 meters to the Maipo River. You have a beautiful overview there. It's just in the southeast of Santiago and in the Andes foothills. And this place, we finally look for different places to find the top or the best Cabernet Sauvignon for Ventisquero and for make this project. And finally, we find this jewel. It's a classical alluvial soil with a very round stones in all the Maipo soils. It's a classical soil from the Maipo Valley, very deep, more than 2 meters deep, and with all that rounded stones in the profile and in a loamy clayly matrix. And then we have it's a little vineyard established in 1987, where it's a classic Cabernet Sauvignon, also without rootstock. It's a non-grafted vineyard, and we find in that place the real essence of the Maipo Valley, the classic flavors of the Maipo Cabernet. Here, the conditions here are quite different than in the coast. We have more high temperatures, but not so extreme, because this canyon, we are just in the canyon of Maipo, so it's really windy. It's windy, so maybe even in the middle of the summer, we have this wind that refreshes the afternoon. And also we don't have any frost in this place because of the same effect of this canyon. So it is like a mountain climate, but with a strong influence of the Maipo. It's a very unique, and also the places Puente Alto and Pirque are the really special footprint of the Maipo Andes, and we could say that it's perfect conditions for Cabernet Sauvignon in Chile. Also, normally it's very stable. Normally, when you have a vineyard with roots really deep on the soil, that this is the case, we don't have too much difference between the years, and the harvest date is not changed too much. It changed a little bit, but when you have an old vineyard with a good balance and very established in a perfect terroir, normally we feel like this stability, this consistency in time, and year after year we find the same profile. The yields are really controlled, and we really manage the vineyard in a classic way. We do a good pruning, and then we harvest, but we manage in a very classic way. And that's how we get the enclave wine, Felipe.
Yeah, enclave, or some people say enclave. It's a word, it's in Spanish, enclave, it's in English, enclave, and enclave. So it's a Latin word, important to know. A lot of the words that we use are in Latin. And we talk about that because what we were looking about, and this we're going to start talking about one of our partners here in the red, especially high-end red wines. It's not Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. We worked together from long time ago, since 2003, with John Duval. John Duval is our wine consultant, especially for the red wines in the gray line, but he's our partner really for this wines that we're going to taste. This next two wines, Enclave, and the next wine we're going to taste, Obliqua. John is an Australian winemaker, very amazing winemaker. He used to be the chief winemaker of Penfolds. He was in charge the last 16 years as the chief winemaker of Penfolds. He's been in charge of amazing wines as French Penfolds, their Cabernet, etc. And John has been working with us since he retired. He retired in 2002 from Penfolds after almost 30 years of work and started consulting. The only winemaker that he consults in Chile is just us. He doesn't consult much project in the world. He has a project also in Washington when he just produces a Syrah, and sequel, and of course his own project, John Duval Wine. So this wine together, when we were thinking about a high-end Cabernet, classical variety that we produce in Chile, you have to think Chile, 35% of the total grapes produced in Chile are Cabernet Sauvignon. So Chile is the biggest country in Cabernet Sauvignon in the world. We have more Cabernet Sauvignon the whole Chile than Bordeaux. So those are like funny numbers, but are interesting. That's how, when you're a winemaker in Chile, the first thing you know is that you have to try to make a great Cabernet, because it's part of our heritage. I think the beauty today that we're showing is that it has changed. But when I started making wine 26 years ago, it was Cabernet and Merlot, and that was it. Really, that was our heritage. Then we started to know that we had Carmenère, and then came Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Even though we've always been making Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay, we weren't really making it properly, I think. It was old days. We didn't export too much. Chile was a quite close country 30 years ago. So things have changed dramatically. So this Cabernet comes from this place. That's why we call it an enclave. In this specific place, enclave is like a terroir, but it's more than just a terroir. It's people, it's the culture, it's the food. This enclave is a specific place. And we harvest this. It's mainly a Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's more like a Chilean Bordeaux blend. It has Petit Verdot on Carmenère and Cap Franc. So it's a blend, but 13 is a beautiful, beautiful. You're tasting a 13 over there. So we're having older vintage today. We're having an older vintage that's available today in the US. It's already 8 years old as a wine. Always think that we harvest normally in March, April. So we are on the other hemisphere. Right now here is winter, even though at least at my house I have a sunny day, but it's quite cold in the morning. So Peter, this is a wine of style. This is what we wanted to reflect with John when we were talking about Cabernet, and we were working with Sergio. Also, Sergio, before he came to work with Ventisquero, he was working in a boutique winery in the Pirque Andes. So it was to look for a top Cabernet. And a Cabernet that was more like a Chilean view, but an international view at the same time. So there's some words that we were looking for, some flavors that we found, and that was like the cassis. We want this chalky tannins of the Cabernet from the stones, but of course complexity. Why this price and of this, because the price is, it's a commercial thing. But of a top Cabernet that we wanted to make was to have an elegant Cabernet. When we come from Pinot Noir to Cabernet, you can see that's a much concentrated wine. You can see the tannin structure, but it's a beauty. You see the tension, beautiful acidity. These tannins that are very tight, still beautiful. I think Cabernet for 8 years old. It's one. I think we should be starting to do this. So we have a commitment with Clave. We normally classical fermentation, small stainless steel tanks. We don't do anything open tops. Classical, we ferment 2 or 3 pump overs per day. A little bit less temperature when we ferment. But what we do is that we do long maceration. Long maceration. We would be 2 or 3 weeks in the maceration. I think the tannin structure is very important to be able to manage it in the tanks after. So that's very important. Of course, everything is hand harvest. And then we very traditional. We just go to barrels that are 225 and 300 liter barrels. Certain coopers, about 50% oak, and the other 50% third use. So very traditional, but we keep it around 2 years in barrels. So we don't clarify, we don't do egg fining, gelatin fining, we don't do any fining, just natural fining, and we don't filter. So what we want to do here is that we take wine from the barrel, very gentle, we let it set down, and it goes directly to the bottle. I personally don't like to filter. I think we take things out. There's no problems if you have to filter, but our style is not unfiltered, it's unfiltered wines. And this wine is a wine that you see, it's a wine that you can keep for a long time. I think that 20 years wouldn't have any issues. We have been tasting not on clay, because on clay, the first vintage was 2010. So this is just our fourth vintage. But what I've seen from other Cabernets that we used to make, that we still make, gray Cabernet, we tasted the other day 2001 vintage, and the wine was still 20 years after, was still perfect. So today we're showing you 2013. There's a question there. So our current vintage today is being released 15. We're on 14, and we have in the market over there, I think 13 and 14. And in the US, we release it very late. This is our top wine from Ventisquero, and I think we normally what we do is 2 years, and we do at least 3 to 4 years of bottle aging in the winery before release. Okay, so that's what we normally do around the world. So we're just starting to release at the 1st of July, 2015. That's when we release the wines.
That's great. It's really lovely to see too. I know that's like a huge commitment to release late, but I think it really shows in the glass, and it's really great to see. You know, a lot of times producers will say, okay, well, you should check out how this wine ages, but you know, I have the 2019 and it's ready for you right now. So it's really great that 15 is the current release, and this 13 is showing beautifully. And yeah, I'm excited to head down to the Colchagua to find out a little bit about the Carmenere.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Let's go to Colchagua. So we're gonna take the car. I'm gonna drive 2 hours more or less from Pirque, and then we go to Colchagua, the amazing Colchagua Valley, and specifically in the Apalta. The Apalta appellation is a new appellation of 2 years old. The Apalta is like a small area in the north of the Cachapoal River, and it's quite new. This is appellation in the Chilean law. The Colchagua we have a Andes middle and coastal, but in Apalta is in the between range appellation. But Apalta specifically is like inverse W. It's a very specific area where we are in the foothill of the. It's like a range in between the coastal range and the Andes. It's part of the coastal range, but it's a little bit mixed. And this place is magical. You could see how dramatic are the landscape, and also the foothills. And this vineyard we established in the year 2000, and with a quite dramatic slope, and that's it's more warm area. And in this place, the Carmenere shows in an amazing way. You could see there how Apalta looks like, just north of the river. It's like a very close area. It's a specific area between the Colchagua Valley, in the Colchagua Valley, but with a specific characteristic. And La Roblería is the vineyard. La Roblería means the oak forest. That in Spanish, that's why we call it La Roblería. And in the mountains around the vineyard, we have a Chilean oak that is in danger of extinction, but we have a beautiful oak forest of Chilean oak in that place. And those soils are quite different. And we are now today we're gonna taste a specific Carmenere made from the upper part of the La Roblería. It's around 450 meters over the sea. And that's a soil that's a colluvial soil that came from the hill that's just beside the soil, that block. It's a very deep soil in La Roblería. And this is a Carmenere that have 20 years old. And the beautiful thing, it's just in the middle of this block, there is a very old oak, a Chilean oak. That's it's obliqua, and Felipe, we're gonna tell you why the wine it's called obliqua. It's a beautiful, beautiful story, something about the oak. Okay, and the Carmener in Apalta shows in amazing way, because Carmener likes the deep soils, likes the warm climate. And here in Apalta, we have more rain than the other places that we have already show you. It's around 600 millimeters a year. It's also a Mediterranean area, but it's a little bit more humid, and we have more rain that's in the winter time. This is the tree that I told you, the beautiful oak tree that Felipe will tell you what about the name of the wine. But it's a magical place. Is when you are in the block of Robleria, that obliqua, you could see all the Colchagua overview, Colchagua Valley. And it has been a discovery, because this is a block that usually we make a Vertis wine, one of the more emblematic wines. But always between in a block, in a vineyard, you have a little jewels that are in the specific spots on in every block. And this is this little part in the upper part of this Carmener block that we vinify apart. And normally in Apalta, we have for years vinified different part of in the same blocks to see really in HD and high definition. Okay, what's about the treasure that the terroir have hidden in the soil. And that's why one year with the team, Felipe discovered this specific pearl in the Apalta terroir. Tell us, Felipe, a little bit about this obliqua and this specific part of the Carmener block in La Robleria.
Thank you, Sergio. Well, you just said a lot of the interesting things about this wine. And of course, when we're talking about wines, there's always a reflection of the site. You know, the terroir, we say in Spanish, terruño, the terroir, the site is amazing. And if you see the photo I have on my back, it's the same photo that I put you. That's the photo of this huge Chilean oak tree. That's why the name of this wine is called obliqua, because the Chilean oak is Notophagus obliqua. So obliqua is the name of the, that's right. And also obliqua means ascending. So this is very funny because this grape is in the highest part of this vineyard. This vineyard is really planted on a mountain. You know, the mountain is about 4,000 feet of altitude, but here where we're planting, we're about 1,500 feet of altitude. So because then it gets too steep. So that's why we call it, the oak area. But of course, there's other vineyards beside. But here, this is the highest vineyard planted in Apalta, where we have some of our quite famous neighbors, as Montes, as La Postol, Neyen, etc. So we have a good partnership in between the different vineyards. This is the only altitude Carmener here in this area. Normally, the Carmener in Apalta and in Colchagua, that is quite famous, Colchagua for Carmener, it is on the flat area. So here we're 300 meters or 900 feet over the flat area. It's a very rare soil comparing to the normal types of Carmeners, because especially this small block in the block, this is about a 8 hectares block, but we found 1 hectare. There's just all the surroundings of this big oak that is very stony, as I was saying, this colluvial stone, but very high percentage. We're talking about 50% of stones in the soil. And the other part is this very red soil, very high content of iron. And of course, that's very typical for the transversal mountains in Chile. But this thing of all the stones makes the really wine to have a Carmener that is much like Cabernet. And if we know about Carmener, and I want to say about this 2 seconds, is that Carmener comes from the family of the Cabernet Franc. And you study more than us because we're just winemakers. We make the wine. We're more making than studying. But Cabernet Franc is the father of Cabernet Sauvignon, is the father of Merlot, and is the father of Carmenère. So we really come from the family of, of tannins, of structure, but maybe in this family, the Carmenère is a little bit more silky in the tannins. But why in Chile is more silky? Because it's more normally on very deep soils with more sun, heat, so the tannins get more mature and are softer. And the altitude, you're really reflecting much more like a different style of Carmenère. So we wanted to show that we just found this place. We found it. We started separating this like in 2014, but we never nailed exactly what we wanted to do until 2017. This is our first release. And it's a wine that we have done some things a little bit different than normal in the winemaking or in that. But the main thing is the stone. So this stone makes that this wine has a tannin structure that's more to the Cabernet side than the side of the Merlot or Carmenère by its own. So you have this chalky tannin structure. Of course, you have this how you say, a little bit of piercings that is classical from the Carmenère. We won't hide it. We are a little bit in altitude, so this little bit of green flavors, but at the end also a lot of red fruit from the altitude. That's very, very important. So it's quite complex. Carmenère, a little bit strange, much more on the elegant side of Carmenère. We don't have to harvest so late. So we're harvesting at the end of April. Almost think that we're 6 months before you. So if you want to translate to other months, it would be like in October. We harvest in September over there. Maybe this is like October harvesting, mid-April. And it's a wine of that, it's structure. But it's a different way of looking about. So this is a Carmenère for aging. Absolutely, you should be able to age it a few years. This is 17. And one of the things that we do a little bit different than traditional winemaking for this is that we don't do a very long maceration, but we do a very long cold maceration before, because we really want to do very gentle, because there's a lot of tannins, so we want to ferment a little bit softer, but it also we maintain it about 35%, especially on the newer versions in a vat. So it's not 100% barrels, 35% or about a third is in a big 2,000 liter vat. So there's very little oak influence. And then all the rest of the barrels, there's no new oak. So we don't use any new barrel. We just use barrels that are 3rd year old, because they were a wine that was 2 years. So there's no really new oak at all. We were using older oak because we really want to show you and to reflect flavors of a Carmenère in a very rare area. It's a beautiful area, and that's the view of Obligua. And this is our new launching. We launched it last year, so this is very, very new. Normally it's about 18 months of aging, and then a minimum of 1 year in bottle before we release. That's how we're going to make it.
Yeah, incredible. And Apalta is just such an amazing place. I mean, you know better than I, but a lot of the best wines of Chile come out of that area, and it's really delimited small area that's really producing some stellar wines. And now going much further down south to a much different, much lighter style.
Yeah, let's go for the next step. Just to answer to Troy Revel that asked if Robleria was part of Apalta or not. And yes, Robleria is a part of the Apalta appellation. That's for that question. Okay, the next stop, we're gonna go south around from Colchagua is around 300 or 400 kilometers south. We're gonna go to Itata. We're gonna pass through Curicó and Maule Valley, and then we're gonna Biobío, and we go to Itata. Itata Valley is really, really special and very significant for us. It's one of the most of the oldest places for growing vineyards in Chile. In Itata is where all the viticulturists start in the north, in the part of the Elqui Valley, and also in Itata. In Itata, we're starting the 16th century, we grow the Moscatel, and País varieties for centuries, maybe for 300 years, and it's very traditional. And it's the place where we could find just small producers from each one have a half an hectare or 1 hectare. Is more similar than maybe the European way to grow vineyards in Chile, because they are just a small producer. There's not big companies or extension of vineyard. It's a very traditional area, and maybe 90% of the grapes that we could find in Itata are Moscatel and Sanso. Sanso is the French variety that was introduced in the area to complement a little bit the other varieties, and that's very traditional. And when you see there and you visit the producers, you say that they grow in hills. They have a very amazing way to take care about those half hectare or less than that in the vineyard. And we have a very beautiful relationship with the producer. They are our friends. They are our partners, and we work together for years in a very close relationship. And we started a beautiful project with Felipe and the team, looking for that Sanso, or they call also in the place Cargadora, the variety. And we look for first we look for friends and partners, and then we start, okay, how we could approach to this area. And it's not just to make wine there or to grow vineyards, to grow grapes. It's just, okay, to go to Itata, you need to feed a relationship with the people. Look, these vineyards are amazing. They have a century, maybe the oldest vineyards out there. They have a very traditional way to culture. They grow in head or like bush vines.
Yeah.
They have not traditional trellis or rows, it's bush vines or just heads. It's like a little head next to the soil. It's
That's a beautiful photo.
They pruning with an axe. It's amazing place. It's a really the deep Chile viticulturist, and we have a beautiful relationship with 3 producers that time that we go with Felipe to see them, and we eat together. Look at this. This is the viticulture in Itata. It's a really authentic. It's something about family, something about tradition, and we do this Sanso that Felipe will explain you. It's a very simple wine, and but we do this project, the grape and the wine, in a very deep respect to our partners, to these people. This is a really terroir where the people is a very important part of this terroir. I could tell you about the climate. Okay, the climate is Mediterranean. The limit of the Mediterranean, we have around 900 millimeters of rain, and the soil is granitic, maybe pretty similar than Casablanca. It's a very old granitic soil with red clay. But for me, the most important thing in this place is the human terroir, is the tradition, is the history. It's magic, Felipe, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you said that this is a wine that, and even though it's on the Keulat range. The Keulat range is what we call in general our ground reserve range. That is another name of a glacier. And the feeling of this wine is, well, I even used my Pinot Noir glass for this wine. Here we're going back to the roots, as Sergio was saying. I think he explained it amazingly, Sergio. We have a lot of in the winery. We're a team of viticulturists and also winemakers. This wine is not made by me, it's made by Angel Marchand today. This has been a process of different winemakers going to the south, but it's always fascinating because we go to the very, very old roots when the Spanish guys conquered Chile, you know, and we really had País grape there. There's still a little bit of País over there. But then about, I don't know, 80 years ago, there was some new things coming, or no, sorry, about 100 years ago, there were coming about some soy grapes. Why? Because they need to grow. They needed a variety that can get more kilos, you know, you needed more yield. But they planted a variety that is used more in Chardonnay du Pape, you know, or in the south and or south of France, you know, in a very cool area. This is quite near to the coast. It's just 20 kilometers. So the weather is a little bit rainy. It's quite cold. So it produces fascinating old vines. These vines are 80 years old to 100 years old. That's why we use small growers. That's why Sergio was saying this is a social responsibility. We pay proper prices that are normally about 3 times more than the average. And we do in a quite lighter style because we want to, there's 2 styles. This is a little bit, normally the style in Itata by the people done in Itata can be a little bit more alcohol than what we do, but we think it's a very elegant variety. So we think, and also you harvest here, not when the winemaker wants to harvest. You harvest when your grower says the big rains are coming, we need to harvest. So that's why we pretend and we try to make normally an earlier harvest to really have a good quality of grapes. We age it in very, very old barrels. So there was a question there, maybe sometimes you can have a little bit of bread, maybe you can have a little bit smart. So we try not to, but we taste barrel by barrel. And then it's just about 3 months in old barrel, and then we take it to stainless steel tank, okay? Because we have different growers, we separate, and the only way to separate is to small batches is to go to barrels. Then we keep it to barrels for about 3 months to give a little bit of, and then we blend it and we put it back in stainless steel tank. But it's a beautiful, you know, it has this beautiful acidity, this nice fruit, this nice fruit. We've been evolving. 17 is a warmer year, but here is never too warm because it's quite cold anyway. And Sanso, yeah, nothing to do with his homeland, as you say. I've been to Chardonnay du Pape a few times, and nothing to do here because this is a place that we could plant Pinot Noir, really. We can plant more wide varieties. The muscats there are amazing in this place, elegant muscats with beautiful acidity. So this is a wine with beautiful acidity. It's a wine of heritage. It's a little bit, I would say, on the relaxed side of the wines. I love it. It's drink this in our terrace on the swimming pool.
the amount of water, especially in Maipo and also in Colchagua, to changing a little bit the philosophy of the irrigation. I mean, the deep irrigation, pushing the water deep to the soil, pushing a little bit the roots growing very deep in the soil, and not irrigate like in the maybe in the 90s, a small amount of water that they stay in the top of the surface, but finally you lose it. So we relearn to irrigate, and we realize that the vine is an amazing plant. It's a very rustic plant. But you must to extract all the potential that the vine have, because in the Vitis vinifera is extremely rustic and resistant to the drought. But you must to since the beginning, you must to help to push the roots to down to the earth. If you do that, the vine needs a very few amounts of water. What has been a word that we have developed the last 15 years, and I think this is the new condition. We don't have the rain that we used to have 20 years ago, not anymore. So we are adapted to that, and also we are developing beautiful projects that's coming soon, that we are restarting to grow the vineyard in dry farming. And we have already 20 hectares in dry farming. It's completely, it's a very old way to grow vineyards, but for us, it's a new project with all techniques that we have developing in the Maipo and Colchagua Valley.
Very nice, very nice. And another question that came up, and sorry if you hear the lawnmower in the background, my neighbor has decided it's a great time to mow the lawn right now. But one question that's come up for a couple of the wines was the general philosophy seems to be using native yeast whenever possible. What contributes to the decision whether to go with native yeast or selected yeast?
We make it simple. Normally, if the wine starts fermenting by its own, that's how we leave. Normally, we take the temperatures up to about 20 degrees Celsius. That would be about, I don't know, 50 something Fahrenheit. And it starts to move and you see the yeast, we go native. So I would say, look, in a lot of the wines, we go 100% native. The Pinot Noir Gray, we don't go native. We use selected yeast because it's a style I'd like to do that, especially that. Eru is native yeast. Enclave is mainly native yeast. Sometimes if one of the tanks doesn't start to ferment very well, we have a laboratory. There are a microbiologist looks at the amount of yeast naturally. Because remember, we also have the weather, we have the climate. There was a question about climate change, and it is a reality. So some years things are not so easy. There's a little bit more temperature, and we have less yeast, natural yeast. So when we have natural yeast available enough, Altara is 100%. Native yeast, Sanso is native yeast, 100%. Obliqua, the Carmenere is a native yeast because it's a very elegant start. So in general, what we do is that that Sanso is also unfiltered Sanso. We can maintain it naturally in the tank. So our philosophy is in general, when we can, and I would say about 70% of our high-end wines could be native, not the Pinot Noir Gray that is selected. Sauvignon Blancs, we do selected yeast. Normally also, that's another variety we use a lot of selected yeast. And on all the high-end wines, we do normally native yeast. Maybe more mid-range wines, we do a lot of selected yeast because of the speed as we work. That's a little bit more industrial how we make it there. But in all the high-end wines, if we do very small batches, everything's by hand, you don't really need any yeast. You have the yeast in the grapes. So why are you going to use other grapes? And they do give you more complexity. Of course, it's a little bit more random, the fermentations, because it's about nature, but that's what the beauty of this wines are. Why would you need selected yeast if you're not going to filter after? So there's a philosophy, of course, on that.
Very nice. The wines are beautiful. It's really, I must say, this is the first time that I've actually got to taste a side-by-side flight going all the way from the north to the south of Chile. So really fun experience. Felipe and Sergio, anything else you'd like to say to everybody or add?
I think there is a question about the climate change. Of course, as you can see all over the world and also in the United States. Remember, we're Chilean, so I understand that you call yourselves Americans. That's how United States of America, but we are also, so that's why we say United States. So no bad feelings about that. But climate change is a huge thing all over the world, and that's the beauty of the winemaking and the viticulture. I think the team of Sergio is doing amazing work on that. You know, we're really looking how we make things. And of course, in all the sustainable, the water, the CO2 emissions, we are very big in the environmental and sustainable area. We just put, Sergio can tell us, we just put a new area of sustainability, a bigger area. We're working very hard on that. It's a family winery. We're not a small winery. We can do very small batches, as we just released 600 bottle wine, and the Tara range is a Viognier. But we're not a small winery. But we do have an area that is very boutique, very experimental. And that's, I think, the fun of making wine, you know, traditional, always looking new things. That's in the winemaking, the viticulture. I think in the north, we planted some new things. We planted some Cabernet Franc and some Grenache, you know, very interesting. There's this bush vine things that we're planting with no irrigation. So it's a winery that we're always relooking what we're doing, but there's some things that are traditional and gonna keep, like the Cabernet and some of the fine wines there, but there's also a space for experimental winemaking. And I think that gives us a little bit, you know, the heart, you know, that we want to relook and re-see what we do and experiment. So thank you for having us. You know, it's an amazing possibility to know. I can't see you, but I'd love to see you one day. We'll be there. We always travel to the US. Sergio and I go often to US as well. And salud, as we say in Chile, everybody, huh? Salud, cheers, have a great, take care, and drink a lot of wine. Yeah. It keeps us better.
Salud, and I just want to thanks to all sommeliers and professionals that join us. We try to show with Felipe, with this amazing platform, a little bit fast overview of all we do from Huasco to Itata. Was a small selection of all the work that we do. And actually, we represent a big and amazing team that is working day by day, the viticulturist, the winemaking, and it's a very hard work, but we are very motivated. But we are very lucky to have the opportunity to make viticulturist and winemaking from the Atacama Desert, passing through Maipo Valley, Casablanca, Lleida, Colchagua, Itata is amazing. So we really enjoy this presentation, and we hope that you also enjoy the wines and the explanation. If you have any requests or questions, we will be available for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Felipe and Sergio and Catalina and the whole team as well, and all the attendees. Amazing to have you here and taste all these wines. Make sure to check out the tests. The scholarships are on the line, $300, $500 scholarships. We hope you're inspired by Ventisquero Wine Estate, can get down and visit hopefully in the near future. And cheers, and thank you all for joining.
Cheers.
Salud.
Bye, Greg. Thank you. Frank, thank you
Thank
for all
you,
the
Greg.
support.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Lee and Lynn, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.